I brought along my son Jonathan, who in the year 2001 will be the same age as I am now. Maybe he will be better adjusted to this kind of world that you're trying to portray.
The big difference when he grows up, in fact, if we wanted to wait for the year 2001, is that he will have in his own house, not a computer as big as this, but at least a console through which he can talk to his friendly local computer and get all the information he needs for his everyday life, like his bank statements, his theater reservations, all the information you need in the course of living in a complex modern society. This will be in a compact form in his own house. He'll have a television screen like these here and a keyboard, and he'll talk to the computer, get information from it, and he'll take it as much for granted as we take the telephone.
I wonder though, what sort of a life would it be like in social terms? I mean, if our whole life is built around the computer, do we become a computer-dependent society and computer-independent individuals?
But these were painted 35,000 years ago by early humans. It's some of the oldest art ever found.
All of us were there analyzing these stones. It was a baptism into the fact that ancient peoples cared about the sky.
Comes from papyrus, a plant which ancient Egyptian people used to create the first ever paper.
Each of these presses can print 50,000 newspapers every hour.
Advancements in transportation and communication fueled a period of mass production and growth of new ports and cities.
John Logie Bard creates the first mechanical television, successfully transmitting pictures in its London attic.
Then remove the receiver and listen for the dial tone. It sounds like this.
Cellular phones not only are becoming less expensive, they're getting smaller. One piece, handheld. Not car phones, street phones.
Technology addiction is a health concern specialists are treating at the London Center of Hope. There's a negative side to that unchecked screen time. Excessive use of the internet is reshaping teenage brains.
Have you ever thought about what the impact of media is on our brains? Or if we're becoming dependent on it and unable to live without it? Or is this just all exaggeration and media hasn't changed that much at all? To find this out, we've got to go back all the way to the beginning. This world was foreign to our own, with forests and luscious lakes spreading across the land. Another major difference is it was nowhere near as technologically advanced as we are now. One of the first forms of media was megalithic art, dating from around 9,500 BC. Megalithic art is the use of large stone structures to construct a message. Although we don't have much information, lots theorise about their true meaning, and including that of religion being the main theory. I'm here at Black Quarries Hill, an ancient monolith dating back to the Stone Age period. It was used as a tomb for the dead, but as you can see now, is all overgrown. Another large monolith about 60 miles south of here is Stonehenge, the most recognisable monolith. What I find interesting about these monoliths is it shows that prehistoric people clearly knew about storytelling and art. It's just we haven't deciphered their meaning yet. Often found within these tombs was probably the most notable form of prehistoric media, that being cave paintings. The first cave paintings date to around 40,000 years ago, starting off in the Ice Age, and are found globally. They were created by hand using a mixture of red and black pigments mixed with iron oxide to create the images. Most of these images depicted everyday tasks such as killing boar and making fire, although others would suggest religious reasons and some that we haven't deciphered. What's really interesting about these first two forms of media is story and messaging and communication was the heart behind it, and that's still present in today's media. So that's why I believe this prehistoric media was so important in defining what media would mean later on. However, this isn't the end of prehistoric media, as there was still one more huge innovation to come. Across the globe from where I am now, they were starting to discover the first form of paper. This being papyrus paper, made of papyrus plant and weaved into paper. The Egyptians were able to scribe on what they needed to write and then take it with them to their desired destination. This made it the first truly portable method of media, as previously you couldn't take your cave painting or monolith around with you. This had massive implications for the wider world, as it now meant global messaging could start to become a thing. Although none of this would actually come to fruition until about a couple thousand years later, in the Industrial Revolution. Many recognise the Industrial Revolution for its increase in transportation and architecture like this, the Clifton Suspension Bridge. While it's an incredible mark of human innovation and construction, I think the best innovation has to go to the print press. The print press allowed companies and individuals to mass print and help create one of the most recognised sources of media, newspapers. Created by Gutenberg, the newspaper made it viable for everyday people to get news and information. This not only garnered connection from people as everyone understood what was going on, but also started to be taken in a darker way. This saw about the first forms of political influencing within the media. Back then, it was the church and head of countries that would dictate what was allowed and what wasn't in the news. This was the first sign of cracks beginning to form in the media structure. Newspapers sufficed for a while, but after, people wanted more than just words on a page. So then came about the first ever camera. The first remnants of cameras was discovered by philosopher Mosey. He discovered the device called the obscura. This was where if you went in a room that was completely dark and sealed, with only a small gap for light to pass through, an image would reflect on a surface upside down. Artists such as Da Vinci used this technique to help draw their paintings from. Although the main flaw with this method is it wasn't portable. Then, in 1729, a discoverer by Joseph Niepce discovered the first form of chemical photography. Using bitumen and 8 hours of sunlight, he was able to discover the first ever photograph. Then a couple years later, his good friend Louis Bagot discovered a new method called the daguerreotype, which became the first commercially successful form of photography. William Talbot then one-upped this with the use of paper negative to capture images. This is a method that we're still using today, and we know it by the name of film. Now, with the creation of still image and moving picture, the public was able to celebrate different cultures from around the world and gain a wider understanding about the further world. It also redefined media, as now we are only not just using it for education, but we're now using it for our entertainment source. This being through craving seeing films and other photography. Now people could see they didn't just want to stop there, they wanted to hear as well. This wish was granted by Thomas Edison in 1877 when he discovered the first audio capturing device, the phonograph.
A telephone transmitter that led Edison to his most startling invention. He suspected that a vibrating needle point would leave indentations on a piece of paper, indentations that could then be played back.
Originally, sound was recorded onto a tinfoil cylinder, but then others decided the sound wasn't that good and finally made over the switch to vinyl, which is what we know now. This allowed for the first time ever sound and video to be coupled together. This meant the public could experience things like they were there in the real time it was happening. However, like newspapers, some saw advantage of this and used it in propaganda. This is when people's lives began to be affected by media without them even noticing. Although at this time, media was still very expensive to obtain and wasn't something that everyone just had on them all the time. This meant the control that the media and organisations behind had on the general public was still not that high. This was all until media became a lot more accessible through the use of early electronics.
New from RCA Victor, handiest TV set ever built.
When someone calls and you are out, you can be reached by dialing your bellboy code number.
The new electronic central office will almost think for itself.
Or the two photographic images in the central home computer, which is secretary, librarian, banker, teacher, medical technician, bridge partner, and all-around servant in this house of tomorrow.
The first key early electronic was radio. James Maxwell proved through electromagnets that radio could become possible, but no greater findings were found from him. His findings were then found true by a man named Heinrich Hertz, who discovered the first radio and sent signals over the world. The first radio waves were sent in 1895 over Italy. Unlike other forms of media, radio was cheap, so everyone had one in their house. During the wartime, it played a crucial role in people getting notified about family and the events of what side the war was taking. As radio evolved, the transmission got a lot better, and we also started integrating into other areas of our life, such as in our transportation with cars. Slowly, media had begun to become a key part of our lives. Now we'd got the sound able to be public, we also now wanted to see those motion pictures in our very own houses. However, television wasn't in the way that we know today. The first idea of what a television could be came from a man called Paul Nipkow. He invented a device called the Nipkow disc, which was able to transmit and capture image. Although progression was stunted until a man called John Logie-Baud showed off a prototype in London in 1926. This model was able to become mass sold, becoming a key player in each and every household. In 1953, then saw the transmission of coloured images. Progression to where we are now in time has seen better quality and image on TV. TV and radio was a key player in defining what media was, as it allowed for 24-hour access to news and entertainment. Yet nobody could predict that media then was once again going to reshift its definition and incorporate social interaction. Alexander Bell created a device that we all know called the phone. It was a speaker and a microphone connected through wires and would connect 2 points of the country through landlines. In a short amount of time, everyone had one, and they were built in every single major city and town. Though there was one problem with the phone, and that being that you had to have it connected through a wire. That was until Motorola in 1983 released a phone called the Dynatax 8000X, which used satellites to send transmissions across the globe. This meant there was no more pesky wires and you could use your phone portably. The impacts from this technology was massive, as it meant that people could talk and listen in real time, opposed to what was previous a letter, which could take months or weeks to get to the person. The final key early electronic which came about was the computer. The first form of computer was to decrypt war messages from both sides of the battlefield. Although a company named Intel realised they could be used for so much more and created the first CPU core. Many followed, such as Steve Jobs with Apple and Bill Gates with Microsoft, as they all wanted to be the leading in computer hardware. While the computer was cool, it was when the World Wide Web was created that it was fully realised. The World Wide Web, created by Tim Berners-Lee, allowed for people to upload and consume content like never before. This allowed for all three existing ways to use media, that being education, social interaction, and entertainment, all in one place. However, the computer created the final use for media, that being personal identity, as now you could relate with others online like yourself and see yourself through them. These early electronics boomed, although they were just too big and not portable. This is where the modern day comes into play.
Closer look at the lasting effects of kids online.
Is Netflix turning into Big Brother?
This is the normal Wi-Fi, is it?
This is just the normal Wi-Fi.
The excessive novelty that it generates it keeps the brain in what is called constant exploratory mode.
It's about teens being on social media, the ability to connect, to have friendships, to find support.
Computers became condensed into devices called laptops, which were like computers, just more portable. And for phones, they were totally innovated in 2007 when Apple revealed the iPhone.
They're calling it iPhone.
This allowed for content to become produced and consumed by you straight from the palm of your hand. This was truly the first time that anyone could create content and it be viewed anywhere around the world. Although there needed to be a place for people to do this. That gap in the market is where social media was born from. The first three major social medias to release were YouTube, Facebook and LinkedIn, all releasing in the early 2000s, around 3 years apart from each other. Many other apps such as Snapchat and Instagram followed. The effect that this has had on people is life-changing, especially with the younger generations. Now we're in a time where more communication is being shared digitally than in person. This is where ideology and political messaging comes back into play. This is because political parties and figures have realised the impact that social media has on young people. They have decided to capitalise on this in order to gain as many supporters as possible. This poses many ethical questions. The most recent and notable social media is TikTok. Using short-form videos, it garners attention and keeps you hooked. This has created a widespread addiction where people keep doom scrolling. Doom scrolling is a definition defined as scrolling indefinitely on infinite content. This is slowly starting to eat at our dopamine receptors and leaves me wondering personally where media will go next.
Hinton also warning of the many threats artificial intelligence poses right now, including mass cyber attacks, bioengineered viruses, lethal autonomous weapons, and mass unemployment.
If I'm someone like a legal assistant, a paralegal, they're not going to be needed for very long. For mundane intellectual labour, AI is just going to replace everybody.
The most obvious answer of where media will go next is through the use of AI. We're currently already seeing this with the rise of apps such as Sora and ChatGPT. These use real-life celebrities and cartoon characters and use a prompt to do whatever you want with them. This not only poses so many ethical questions, but also poses the question of if traditional media forms will die out and become obsolete. Although we've already seen an uprise from many communities and strikes, such as the SAG-AFTRA strike, where many rebelled against pay cuts, but also the use of AI in film, and therefore placed greater restrictions on the usage within media. At this time, it's also unknown if AI is going to be a totally negative thing, or could even be positive in some aspects as well. Although at this current moment in time, that is totally unknown. Looking back at the entire history of media, it's clear to see humans have become a lot more dependent on it. This being for their education, entertainment, social interaction, and personal identity. It's also a clear fact that when new media forms come about, the old ones become obsolete. Could this just be what's happening with AI now? What do you think? Will we continue to exist using media as we already do? Or will media evolve and we're seeing the next key evolution of media?